I woke up on my 37th birthday to an empty bed and a text message that would change everything. Eric, I'm done. Don't look for me. The money is mine too. Allison. That was it. 13 years of marriage reduced to a cold text at 6:30 in the morning. I sat up in our king-size bed, staring at the phone screen like it might suddenly reveal this was all some sick joke. The sheets on her side were already cold. My name is Eric Massey, and I run Massey Construction here in Millbrook, New England. Nothing fancy. We do renovations, small commercial jobs, the kind of honest work that keeps a roof over your head and food on the table. At least it used to. I stumbled to the kitchen, hoping to find Allison making coffee with that guilty smile she wore when she'd done something she knew would piss me off. Instead, I found her wedding ring sitting in the sink like a piece of discarded jewelry from a garage sale. 13 years, and she left it next to the dirty dishes. Happy birthday to me, I muttered, grabbing my phone to call her. Straight to voicemail. Of course. The house felt different already. Too quiet, too empty. I noticed things missing. Her expensive lingerie from the dresser, the designer purse she'd bought last month. The laptop she claimed was for work projects. All gone. Then it hit me, the joint account. My hands shook as I logged into our online banking. The balance that should have shown $47,000, our life savings, money I'd earned with my hands and back over years of 12-hour days, showed zero. Completely empty. That bitch, I whispered, then immediately felt guilty for saying it. Old habits die hard, even when your wife just cleaned out your bank account and disappeared. I called the bank immediately. Margaret at customer service had that practiced sympathy in her voice that told me she'd handled situations like this before. Mr. Massey, I see the withdrawal was made yesterday evening at 4:47 p.m. The entire balance was transferred to an external account, since your wife is listed as a joint account holder. She can just take everything? My voice cracked like I was 16 again. I'm afraid so, sir. Joint accounts mean either party has full access to all funds. I hung up and sat in my kitchen, staring at the ring in the sink. 13 years. We'd met at a construction site where she worked in the office of the development company. She was beautiful, smart, ambitious. I was just the contractor's son who made her laugh. Somehow it worked, or I thought it did. My phone rang. Unknown number. Mr. Massey? This is David Whitfield from Millbrook First National. We need to discuss an urgent matter regarding your account. If this is about the withdrawal, I already know. No, sir. This is about the overdraft. Your wife accessed a business line of credit attached to the account. She's withdrawn $80,000 against a credit line that was never properly secured. The account is now significantly overdrawn. I sat down hard. What are you talking about? The paperwork from 2019 when you refinanced your business loan? Your wife signed as the primary guarantor for the credit line. She's legally responsible for the full amount, and the bank requires immediate payment. My mind raced back to 2019. Allison had handled all the paperwork for the business loan refinancing. She was always better with documents, she said. I just signed where she told me to sign. Mr. Whitfield, are you telling me that my wife just made herself responsible for an $80,000 debt? That's exactly what I'm telling you, Mr. Massey. And we've been trying to reach Mrs. Massey since yesterday evening. Her phone appears to be disconnected. I almost smiled. Almost. She never did read the fine print. After hanging up, I called my office manager, Carla. If anyone would know what was really going on, it would be her. Carla Rodriguez had worked for my dad before me, and she knew everything about everyone in this town. Eric, honey, I was wondering when you'd call. Her voice had that tone, the one that meant she'd been waiting to spill some serious tea. Carla, Allison left me, cleaned out the joint account. I know, sweetie. The whole town knows by now. Tasha Williams has been running her mouth at the coffee shop since yesterday. Tasha Williams, Allison's best friend and fellow HR manager at TechFlow Solutions. If Tasha was talking, then Allison's business was about to become very public. What's Tasha saying? Oh, honey, you don't want to know. Yes, I do. Carla sighed. She's saying Allison finally got smart and left you for a real man. Someone who can give her the life she deserves. Someone with money and class. Who? Victor Brandt. You know, that tech guy with the Tesla and the fancy apartment downtown. I knew Victor. Smug bastard who thought his startup money made him king of the world. He'd hit on Allison right in front of me at the Christmas party last year, and she'd laughed it off. Apparently, she hadn't been laughing it off for long. How long? I asked. From what I hear, about 6 months. Maybe longer. 6 months. While I was working 60-hour weeks to save money for the vacation she wanted. while I was planning to surprise her with the kitchen renovation she'd been asking for. While I was being the faithful husband, she was screwing around with a guy who probably made more in a month than I made in a year. Eric, there's something else. What? Tasha posted pictures on Instagram last night. Allison and Victor at some fancy restaurant in Boston. The caption said something about new beginnings and finally being with someone who appreciates me. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. Not just anger, something sharper, more focused. Send me the link. Eric, send it. The photos showed Allison laughing, looking happier than she'd looked with me in months. Victor had his arm around her, both of them dressed like they were celebrating something. The timestamp showed 7:23 p.m. yesterday, just a few hours after she'd emptied our account. That's when my phone rang again, Mr. Whitfield from the bank. Mr. Massey, we've left several messages for your wife. The credit line payment is due immediately. If she doesn't respond by tomorrow, we'll be forced to take legal action. Mr. Whitfield, I don't think my wife is going to be taking your calls anytime soon. Sir, this is a serious matter. $80,000 plus fees and interest. If she can't pay immediately, we'll need to discuss asset seizure and legal remedies. I hung up and stared at the Instagram photos again. Allison looked so confident, so sure of herself. She'd probably thought she was so smart, taking all our money and running off with her rich boyfriend. She probably figured I'd be too broken and stupid to do anything about it. She was wrong. I called Mike Torres, my foreman, and the closest thing I had to a best friend. Mike, I need a favor. Anything, boss. Heard about Allison. I'm sorry, man. Don't be sorry yet. I need you to help me with something. And Mike? Yeah? This stays between us. The next morning, I drove to Victor's apartment complex downtown, Millbrook Heights, one of those modern glass and steel buildings that screamed, I have money and want everyone to know it. His Tesla was parked in spot 23, gleaming black and probably worth more than most people's houses. I sat in my pickup truck, drinking coffee and watching. At 8:15 a.m., Victor emerged wearing a suit that probably cost more than I made in a week. He was on his phone, laughing about something, probably telling someone how he'd stolen another man's wife. He got in the Tesla and drove off, probably to his office where he made money by moving other people's money around on computers. I waited another hour, then walked to the building's entrance. The doorman was a guy named Pete who'd gone to high school with my younger brother. Small towns have their advantages. Hey, Pete. Eric Massey. Eric, how's business? Can't complain. Listen, I'm supposed to give Victor Brandt an estimate for some work on his place. You know if he's in? Nah, he left about an hour ago. Won't be back until evening probably. That guy keeps weird hours. Thanks, Pete. I drove back home and called Carla. I need you to do some research for me. What kind of research? The legal kind. I want to know everything about business credit lines, joint accounts, and what happens when someone defaults on a loan they guaranteed. Eric, what are you planning? Justice, Carla. Just justice. By noon, Carla had called back with information that made me smile for the first time in 2 days. Okay, here's what I found. When Allison signed those papers in 2019, she became personally liable for the business credit line. Since she accessed it without proper collateral, the bank can pursue her for the full amount plus penalties. We're talking close to $90,000 now with fees. And since she's not technically divorced yet, they can go after her wages, her car, anything in her name. The bank doesn't mess around with this stuff, Eric. They'll destroy her credit and garnish her wages until every penny is paid back. What about Victor? That's the beautiful part. Unless he co-signed something, he's not liable for her debts. So when the bank comes calling, it's all on her. I felt that cold satisfaction again. Allison had always been impulsive, always acted without thinking things through. She'd seen the money in the account and taken it, probably never bothering to read the fine print about where it came from. Carla, I need one more favor. Name it. I want you to call TechFlow Solutions. Ask to speak to HR about a reference check for Allison Massey. See what they say. 20 minutes later, Carla called back, barely able to contain her laughter. Eric, you're not going to believe this. Allison called in sick today and yesterday. But Tasha told the receptionist that Allison was dealing with personal matters and would be back Monday. Apparently half the office knows about the affair. How professional. It gets better. I talked to my friend Janet, who works there. Apparently, Victor's been bragging to his buddies about his new sugar mama who just came into some money. He's been telling people that Allison left her loser husband and brought $50,000 to their relationship. Sugar mama. The phrase hit me like a punch to the gut. Allison wasn't just cheating, she was being used, and she was too blind to see it. That afternoon, I drove past the Silver Anchor, the dive bar where most of the construction crews hung out after work. Mike's truck was there, along with a few others I recognized. I needed to think, and sometimes the best thinking happened over a beer with people who understood real work. The bar was dark and smelled like cigarettes and honest sweat. Mike was at the bar with Tommy Chen and Big Jim Watson, all guys from various crews around town. They looked up when I walked in, and the conversation stopped. "Eric," Mike said carefully, "how you holding up?" "I've been better." I ordered a beer and sat down. "But I've also been worse." "Man, I can't believe Allison did that to you," Tommy said, "after everything you did for her." "Like what?" I asked. "Come on, man. You worked your ass off for that woman. Remember when she wanted that new car? You took on 3 extra jobs to make the payments. When her mom got sick, you paid for the medical bills without blinking. You treated her like a queen." "Yeah, well, apparently queens need richer kingdoms." Big Jim, who'd been married and divorced twice, shook his head. "It's not about the money, Eric. Women like that, they're never satisfied. They always think there's something better out there." "Maybe," I said. "But here's the thing. Sometimes when you reach for something better, you end up with something much worse." Mike looked at me suspiciously. "What do you mean?" "I mean, Allison might have bitten off more than she can chew this time." I told them about the bank, the credit line, the debt. By the time I finished, all 3 were grinning. "So she's on the hook for $90,000, Tommy asked. "Give or take." "And pretty boy Victor doesn't know?" "Not yet." Big Jim raised his beer. "To karma, boys. Sometimes she's a beautiful thing." We drank to that, and for the first time since this started, I felt like maybe things were going to work out after all. That evening, I decided to take a drive. Just to clear my head, I told myself. It had nothing to do with the fact that Victor's usual route home from work took him down Maple Street, past the old Miller farm. I was sitting in my truck at the farm's entrance when Victor's Tesla came flying down the road, probably doing 20 over the speed limit. I watched him pass, then pulled out behind him, keeping my distance. He turned into Millbrook Heights and parked in his usual spot. I parked across the street and watched him get out, still on his phone. He was laughing again, gesturing with his free hand like he was telling some great story. Then I saw her. Allison stepped out of the building's entrance, dressed in clothes I'd never seen before. Expensive clothes. She looked good, better than she'd looked in months. She practically skipped over to Victor, who ended his call and wrapped her in his arms. They kissed right there in the parking lot, and I felt something twist in my chest. Not jealousy exactly, something colder, more final. I watched them walk into the building together, Victor's hand on her back, both of them laughing about something. They looked like a couple celebrating their good fortune. They had no idea what was coming. I drove home and called Mr. Whitfield at the bank. "Mr. Whitfield, this is Eric Massey. Any luck reaching my wife?" "No, sir." "We've tried multiple times. The number on file appears to be disconnected." "Well, I might be able to help you with that." "Oh?" "I believe my wife is staying at 425 Millbrook Heights, apartment 15B. That's her friend's place?" "I see. We'll send someone over tomorrow." "Mr. Whitfield?" "Yes?" "When you do find her, could you give me a call? I'd like to know how that conversation goes." "I don't see why not, Mr. Massey. After all, this situation has affected you as well." I hung up and poured myself a whiskey. Tomorrow was going to be interesting. The call came at 2:47 p.m. the next day. I was on a job site, supervising the installation of new windows in a downtown office building, when my phone rang. Mr. Whitfield's name appeared on the screen. "Mr. Massey, we found your wife." And she was uncooperative. She claimed she had no knowledge of any debt and accused us of harassment. She became quite hostile when we explained the situation. Did she understand that she's legally responsible for the money? Eventually. Her friend, Mr. Brandt, was present during the conversation. He seemed quite surprised by the information. I bet he was. What happens next? We've given her 72 hours to arrange payment or contact our legal department to discuss a payment plan. If she fails to respond, we'll begin collection procedures. Which means wage garnishment, asset seizure, legal action. The full extent of what's available under law. After hanging up, I called Carla. The bank found them. How did that go? About as well as you'd expect. Allison tried to play dumb, and Victor got his first taste of reality. I wish I could have been a fly on that wall. Carla, I need you to do something else for me. What now? Call TechFlow again. Ask to speak to Allison directly. Tell them it's about her husband's medical emergency. Eric, what are you... Just trust me. An hour later, Carla called back, and she was laughing so hard she could barely speak. Eric, oh my God. I called TechFlow and asked for Allison. The receptionist put me on hold for like 10 minutes, then came back and said Allison had left early for a family emergency. But here's the good part. I could hear shouting in the background. Like serious shouting. Shouting? Yeah, and when the receptionist came back on the line, she sounded all flustered. She said something about hoping everything works out in this tone that suggested she knew exactly what was going on. Interesting. Eric, I think your wife's perfect new life is falling apart. That evening, I decided to take another drive. This time, I wasn't being subtle about it. I parked right across the street from Millbrook Heights and waited. At 6:30, Victor's Tesla pulled into the lot, but this time he wasn't alone. Allison was in the passenger seat, and even from across the street, I could see they were arguing. Their body language was all wrong, tense, angry, defensive. They got out of the car, and the argument continued in the parking lot. I couldn't hear the words, but I didn't need to. Victor kept gesturing toward the building, then toward Allison, then throwing his hands up in the air. Allison was pointing at him, her voice carrying across the street even if the words didn't. Finally, Victor stormed toward the building entrance. Allison followed, still talking, still gesturing. He turned around and said something that made her stop dead in her tracks. Then he went inside, leaving her standing alone in the parking lot. She stood there for a full minute, looking lost. Then she pulled out her phone and made a call. When whoever she was calling didn't answer, she tried again and again. Finally, she walked to the building entrance, but instead of going inside, she sat down on the steps and put her head in her hands. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. My phone rang. Unknown number. Eric? It's me. Allison's voice was small, defeated. Nothing like the confident woman who'd left me that cold text message 3 days ago. What do you want, Allison? We need to talk. I think you said everything you needed to say in your text. Eric, please? I'm in trouble. I know. You know? About the debt? About the bank? Yeah, I know. Turns out when you steal money from a joint account that's connected to a business credit line, there are consequences. Silence on the other end. Then quietly, I didn't know. You never do know, Allison. You just act and then expect other people to clean up your mess. Can you help me? The question hung in the air between us. Could I help her? Probably. Should I help her? That was a different question entirely. Why would I help you? Because we were married for 13 years. Because you loved me once. I loved you until 3 days ago, Allison. Right up until you cleaned out our account and ran off with your boyfriend. Eric, I made a mistake. Which mistake? Cheating on me, stealing our money, or getting caught? Another long silence. Then, all of it. All of it was a mistake. Where's Victor? He said he needed space to think. Translation? He found out you're broke and in debt, so now you're not as attractive as you were yesterday. It's not like that. Isn't it? I could hear her crying now. Soft sobs that once would have broken my heart. Now they just sounded like the consequences of her choices catching up with her. Allison, you made your bed. Now you get to lie in it. Eric, wait. I hung up. 10 minutes later, she called again. I didn't answer. She called 6 more times over the next hour. I ignored all of them. At 9 p.m., my doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole and saw Allison standing on my front porch, looking like she'd been crying for hours. She was wearing the same expensive clothes from yesterday, but now they looked wrinkled, like she'd slept in them. I opened the door but didn't invite her in. Eric, please. I have nowhere else to go. What about Victor's place? He asked me to leave. He said he needed to think about whether our relationship could survive this kind of financial complication. Financial complication? Is that what he called it? She nodded, fresh tears starting. Allison, let me make sure I understand this. You left me, stole our life savings, moved in with another man, and now that you're in legal and financial trouble, you want to come back? I know how it sounds. It sounds like you're exactly the same selfish person you've always been. It sounds like you only want me when you need something. That's not true, isn't it? When's the last time you did something for me that didn't benefit you somehow? She opened her mouth to answer, then closed it. We both knew she couldn't think of anything. Here's what's going to happen, Allison. You're going to figure out how to pay back that $90,000. You're going to deal with the consequences of your choices, and you're going to do it without me. Eric, I can't pay back $90,000. You know I can't. Then you should have thought of that before you spent it. Please, I'll do anything. Anything? She nodded eagerly. Then go back to Victor. Tell him you made a mistake. Beg him to take you back. Maybe he'll help you pay off the debt. He won't. He made it clear that my problems are my problems. Then I guess you're learning what it feels like to be abandoned by someone you trusted. I started to close the door, but she put her hand against it. Eric, what happened to you? You used to be kind. I used to be a lot of things, Allison. I used to be trusting. I used to be generous. I used to believe that if you treated people with love and respect, they'd treat you the same way. But you know what? You cured me of all that. I closed the door and locked it. She knocked for another 10 minutes, calling my name, pleading with me to let her in. Eventually, the knocking stopped, and I heard her car start up and drive away. I poured myself another whiskey and sat in my living room, looking at the framed photos of our wedding that I hadn't had the heart to take down yet. We looked so happy, so sure that we'd figured out something that other couples hadn't. Maybe we had, for a while. But happiness built on one person's sacrifice and the other person's selfishness isn't really happiness at all. It's just a beautiful lie that eventually collapses under its own weight. My phone buzzed with a text message. Eric, I'm sorry. I know you don't believe me, but I am. I never meant for any of this to happen. I deleted it without responding. 3 days later, Carla burst into my office with news that made my morning. Eric, you're not going to believe what happened at TechFlow yesterday. I looked up from the blueprints I was reviewing. Try me. Allison got fired. I set down my pencil. Fired? Well, technically she was asked to resign. Apparently, her little drama with Victor has been affecting the workplace. They work in the same building, and word got around about the affair, the debt, all of it. HR decided it was creating a hostile work environment. How do you know all this? Janet called me this morning. She said Allison came in yesterday, cleaned out her desk, and left crying. Security had to escort her out because she tried to go to Victor's floor. And Victor? Still employed, still acting like nothing happened. Apparently, he told people that Allison was going through some personal issues, and he was trying to be supportive as a friend. Friend? The word was like a slap in the face, even to me. I could only imagine how it felt to Allison. So now she's unemployed and $90,000 in debt. Gets better, Carla said with a grin. The bank called this morning. They want to schedule a meeting with you. With me? Why? Because technically you're still married. They want to discuss the situation and make sure you understand your rights. An hour later, I was sitting in Mr. Whitfield's office at Millbrook First National. The office was old-school banking, dark wood, leather chairs, the kind of place where serious money conversations happened. Mr. Massey, thank you for coming in. I wanted to discuss your wife's situation and how it might affect you. I'm listening. The good news is that the debt is entirely in her name. You have no legal liability for the money she borrowed against the business credit line. And the bad news? There is no bad news for you. Your wife, however, is in serious financial trouble. She's unemployed, has no assets to speak of, and owes us nearly $100,000 with penalties and interest. What are her options? Bankruptcy, most likely. It will destroy her credit for years, but it's probably her only way out. I thought about that. Allison had always been proud of her credit score, her financial stability, her ability to buy nice things. The idea of bankruptcy would terrify her. Mr. Whitfield, hypothetically, what would happen if someone wanted to pay off her debt? Someone like you? Hypothetically. Well, the debt would be satisfied, and your wife would be free and clear. But Mr. Massey, that's a lot of money to pay for someone who... He trailed off diplomatically. Someone who stole from me and left me for another man. I wasn't going to put it quite that bluntly, but yes. Don't worry, Mr. Whitfield. I'm not planning to pay her debt. I was just curious about her options. In that case, she'll likely file for bankruptcy within the next few weeks. It's really her only choice. That evening, I was having dinner at Murphy's Diner when I saw them. Allison and Victor sitting in a corner booth, having what looked like a very tense conversation. She was leaning forward, talking intensely, while he sat back with his arms crossed. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but their body language told the story. She was pleading, he was rejecting. She reached across the table to touch his hand, he pulled it away. She started crying. He looked around nervously, like he was embarrassed to be seen with her. Finally, Victor stood up, threw some money on the table, and walked out. Allison sat there alone, crying into her coffee. I should have felt satisfaction. This was exactly what I'd hoped would happen. Victor would abandon her as soon as she became inconvenient, and she'd learn what it felt like to be discarded. Instead, I felt something more complicated. Not sympathy exactly, but a recognition of how completely her life had fallen apart. In less than a week, she'd lost her husband, her job, her boyfriend, and her financial security. She was facing bankruptcy and social humiliation in a small town where everyone knew everyone else's business. It was everything she deserved, and somehow that made it feel hollow. I paid my check and left without speaking to her. The next morning, Mike found me at the job site, installing cabinets in a kitchen renovation. Boss, we need to talk. About what? About the fact that half the town is talking about your wife and that tech guy, and the other half is talking about how you're handling it. I set down my drill. What are people saying? Most folks think you're being too nice. They think you should be raising hell, making her life miserable, getting revenge. And what do you think? I think you're playing a longer game than most people realize. Mike was smarter than he looked. What makes you say that? Because I know you, Eric. You're not the type to just roll over and take it, but you're also not the type to do something stupid that'll land you in jail. So you're doing something else. Like what? Like letting her destroy herself while you watch from a safe distance. I smiled. You give me too much credit, Mike. Do I? Before I could answer, my phone rang. Unknown number. Eric, it's Tasha. Tasha Williams, Allison's former best friend. This should be interesting. What do you want, Tasha? I want to talk to you about Allison. I'm not interested in hearing about Allison. Just listen, okay? She's in bad shape, really bad shape. That's not my problem anymore. Eric, she made a mistake, a huge mistake, but she's paying for it now. Good. That's cold, even for you. Cold? Tasha, your best friend cheated on me for months, stole our life savings, and left me for another man. Now you want me to feel sorry for her because there were consequences? She never meant for it to go this far. What did she mean for, exactly? To have a little affair on the side while I supported her? To take just enough money to have fun with Victor, but not enough to get in trouble? Silence on the other end. Tasha, let me ask you something. Did you know about the affair? Eric, did you know? Yes, she said quietly. For how long? A few months. And you never thought to tell me? It wasn't my place. But now it's your place to call me and ask me to help her. She's desperate, Eric. She's talking about hurting herself. That stopped me cold. What do you mean? She says she can't live with what she's done. She says she's lost everything and it's all her fault. Tasha, if you think Allison is going to hurt herself, you need to call the police or a crisis hotline. Don't call me. She doesn't want help from strangers. She wants forgiveness from you. Then she's going to be disappointed. I hung up, but Tasha's words stayed with me. Allison talking about hurting herself. I didn't think she'd actually do it. She was too vain, too convinced that someone would eventually save her. But the fact that she was saying it meant she was more desperate than I'd realized. Part of me, a small part, wondered if I was pushing this too far. But then I remembered coming home to an empty house and a cold text message. I remembered 13 years of putting her needs first, only to discover that she'd been cheating on me and planning her exit strategy for months. Number. She'd made her choices. Now she had to live with them. That night, I drove past Victor's apartment building one more time. His Tesla was in its usual spot, but there was no sign of Allison's car. The lights were on in his apartment, and I could see him moving around inside, apparently alone. So Victor had finally cut her loose completely. Now she really was on her own. My phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. Eric, this is Allison. I'm using a friend's phone because I can't afford to keep mine on. I know you don't want to hear from me, but I need you to know that I understand now. I understand what I threw away, and I understand that I can't fix it. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. For all of it. I stared at the message for a long time, then deleted it without responding. But for the first time since this all started, I didn't feel satisfaction. I felt something else entirely. Something that felt uncomfortably like victory. And victory, I was learning, didn't taste as sweet as I'd expected. 2 weeks later, the whole thing came to a head in the most public way possible. I was having lunch at the Silver Anchor when Victor walked in. He looked different, less polished, more frazzled. His usually perfect hair was messy, and his expensive shirt was wrinkled. He ordered a whiskey at noon, which told me everything I needed to know about how his week was going. He spotted me in the corner booth and, after a moment's hesitation, walked over. And Eric? Victor? Mind if I sit? I gestured to the empty seat across from me. It's a free country. He sat down and took a long drink of his whiskey before speaking. I wanted to apologize. For what? For the affair. For the way everything went down. It wasn't right. I studied his face. He looked genuinely uncomfortable, maybe even guilty. Why now? Because I realized I was an idiot. Allison. She's not who I thought she was. What did you think she was? Successful. Independent. Together. He laughed bitterly. Turns out she was just married to someone who made her look successful and independent, and together. And now? Now she's unemployed, broke, and facing bankruptcy. And she's been calling me 50 times a day, begging me to help her. Are you going to? Hell no. I barely knew her, Eric. We had a fling, that's all. I never promised to solve her problems. I almost laughed. A fling? Victor, she left her husband for you. She thought you two were building a life together. That was her mistake, not mine. You're a real piece of work. You know that? He shrugged. I'm honest about what I want. I wanted to have some fun with a married woman who seemed like she had her shit together. When it turned out she didn't, I moved on. And Allison? Allison is learning that actions have consequences. I leaned back in my booth, studying this man who had helped destroy my marriage. You know what, Victor? I think I actually respect your honesty. You're a selfish bastard, but at least you own it. Thanks, I think. But here's the thing. Allison didn't know that's all she was to you. She thought she was trading up from a blue-collar husband to a successful businessman. She thought she was getting a better life. That's not my fault. No, it's not. But it is your fault that you pursued a married woman and made her promises you had no intention of keeping. Victor finished his whiskey. Eric, I'm not proud of what I did, but I'm not responsible for fixing it either. Fair enough. He stood to leave, then turned back. For what it's worth, you seem like a decent guy. She was an idiot to leave you. Yeah, well, sometimes people make bad choices. After Victor left, I sat in the bar thinking about the conversation. Victor was right about one thing. Allison had made her own choices, but he'd also manipulated those choices, made her believe she was getting something she wasn't. Not that it mattered now. The damage was done, and everyone involved was paying the price. That afternoon, Carla came into my office with a grim expression. Eric, I just got off the phone with Janet at TechFlow. What now? Allison showed up there this morning. Security had to escort her out. What was she doing there? Trying to get her job back. Apparently, she went straight to the CEO's office and begged him to reconsider. When that didn't work, she tried to confront Victor. And Victor told security that she was harassing him. They banned her from the building. I shook my head. She's really lost it. Eric, there's something else. Janet says Allison looked rough, like she hasn't been sleeping or eating. People are starting to worry about her. Where is she staying? Nobody knows. Tasha says she's not answering her phone, and her mom says she hasn't heard from her in days. That evening, I drove through town looking for Allison's car. I found it parked behind Murphy's Diner, and through the window, I could see her sitting alone in a back booth. She looked exactly like Carla had described. Thin, exhausted, defeated. I sat in my truck for 20 minutes, watching her nurse a single cup of coffee. She kept checking her phone, but it never rang. She kept looking toward the door, but nobody came in looking for her. Finally, she paid her check and walked out to her car. When she saw my truck, she stopped and stared. For a moment, I thought she might come over and try to talk to me. Instead, she got in her car and drove away. I followed her, keeping my distance. She drove to the outskirts of town and pulled into the parking lot of the Sleepy Inn, a rundown motel that rented rooms by the week. She parked in front of room 12 and went inside. So that's where she was living now. A weekly motel room that probably cost more than she could afford, especially with no job and mounting debt. The next morning, I got a call from Mr. Whitfield at the bank. Mr. Massey, I wanted to update you on your wife's situation. I'm listening. She's filed for bankruptcy, Chapter 7. It should discharge most of her debt, including what she owes us. Most of it? The court may require her to pay back a portion, depending on her future income, but realistically, we'll probably write off the loss. So she gets away with it? In a legal sense, yes. But Mr. Massey, bankruptcy isn't getting away with it. It will destroy her credit for 7 to 10 years. She won't be able to get a loan, a credit card, sometimes even an apartment or a job. It's a financial death sentence that follows you for years. After hanging up, I realized that this was it, the final chapter of Allison's spectacular fall from grace. She'd gone from being a successful HR manager with a comfortable life to being unemployed, homeless, and bankrupt in less than a month. It was everything I'd wanted when this started, complete and total consequences for her actions. So why didn't I feel better about it? That afternoon, I was at another job site when Mike approached me with a concerned expression. Boss, we got a problem. What kind of problem? The kind where your ex-wife is sitting in her car outside your house, and she's been there for 3 hours. I drove home immediately. Sure enough, Allison's car was parked across the street from my house. She was sitting behind the wheel, just staring at the place where we'd built our life together. I pulled into my driveway and walked over to her car. She rolled down the window when she saw me coming. Eric. Allison, you can't be here. I know. I wanted to see the house one more time. Why? Because it was the only place I was ever really happy, and I threw it away for nothing. She looked terrible, thinner than I'd ever seen her, with dark circles under her eyes and clothes that looked like she'd been wearing them for days. Allison, you need help. Professional help. I need my life back. That's not going to happen. I know. She started crying again, the same broken sobs I'd heard on the phone weeks ago. Eric, I know I can't fix this. I know you'll never forgive me. I just wanted to tell you that you were right about everything. Right about what? About Victor. About the money. About me. You said I was selfish and impulsive and that I never thought about consequences. You were right. Allison. He used me, Eric. Victor never cared about me at all. He just wanted to see if he could steal another man's wife. And when things got complicated, he threw me away like garbage. I'm sorry. Are you? Are you really sorry? Or are you glad that I'm finally getting what I deserve? I thought about that question. Was I glad? A month ago, I would have said yes. I would have said she deserved every bit of suffering she was experiencing. But looking at her now, broken, desperate, living in a motel room, and facing years of financial ruin, I realized that revenge wasn't as satisfying as I'd expected. Winning wasn't as sweet when the other person was completely destroyed. I'm sorry it came to this, I said finally. But you're not sorry I'm suffering. No, I admitted. I'm not sorry you're suffering. You made choices, Allison. You chose to cheat. You chose to steal our money. You chose to leave me for another man. Now you're living with those choices. She nodded, wiping her eyes. I know. I just wanted to hear you say it. She started her car and rolled up the window. As she drove away, she looked at me one last time through the windshield. There was something final in that look, something that felt like goodbye. I never saw Allison again. 3 days later, Carla told me that Allison had left town. Nobody knew where she'd gone, not Tasha, not her mother, not anyone. She'd simply packed up her motel room and disappeared. Victor, meanwhile, had already moved on to his next conquest, a divorced real estate agent who drove a BMW and owned her own business. He seemed completely unaffected by the destruction he'd helped cause. As for me, I went back to my life. I ran my business, hung out with my crew, and slowly started putting the pieces back together. The house felt different without Allison's presence, but it also felt more honest, more like home. I never did take down those wedding photos, not out of nostalgia, but as a reminder. A reminder that happiness built on one person's sacrifice and another person's selfishness isn't really happiness at all. It's just a beautiful lie waiting to collapse. And when it finally does collapse, everyone gets buried in the rubble. 6 months later, I heard through the small-town gossip network that Allison had moved to Florida and was working as a waitress in a beach town where nobody knew her story. She was apparently doing okay. Not great, but okay. I was glad to hear it. Not because I'd forgiven her, and not because I wanted her back, but because I'd learned that complete destruction of another person, even someone who hurt you, doesn't heal your own wounds. It just creates new ones. The best revenge, I realized, wasn't destroying Allison. It was building a better life without her. It was learning to be happy on my own terms, not in reaction to what she'd done to me. And that's exactly what I did. The end. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next story. Write in the comments from which city you are watching,